So, like a funny quirk of this trial is obviously you do have a lot of evidence coming out of the Epic versus Apple trial, and unfortunately, the court had mishandled a lot of the evidence and the
Mishandled.
information. Well, that's what it is. And insanely enough, actually published a whole bunch of extremely confidential, like trade secret information on the public box, which is like Dropbox, and people obviously just consumed it straight away. And you could just download it all. I downloaded it like when it was available, and then they'd realized the error. Given, I think they had a dozen companies contact them, the court, urgently to say, you've put up, like absolutely confidential information. Like information that's like not even meant to just be redacted and put up. It's not even meant to be up. It's, trade secret information.
It's insane. It is
It's crazy.
insane.
It's crazy.
Like, some of the things here are just like, even if some of it's not harmful, it's just like complete egg in your face stuff.
Yeah.
And man, like, how do you screw that up so bad?
Yeah.
It's just.
And I should say quickly, some of the stuff here actually is a part of the evidence. Some of it isn't. So we're not going to make a distinction, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that came out that's just so interesting, and like maybe we'll kick it off with Epic Game Store. So like, I love Epic Game Store. Everyone shits on it. I think it's great, giving us free games. I'm actually like shocked at how little money they had to spend to get the free games for, we're talking about a 9-month period of time, but it was like $12 million.
That seems too cheap.
Of the games that we know, there are some that they
Of the ones that they showed in that 9-month period, right?
Yeah.
Starting with Subnautica. But I'll just say like this, Swinny, that like when this popped up, because I was like on Twitter when this was all getting leaked out, and people actually were like, is this fake? Because it's too small. Like the numbers are way too low. But it turns out, no, this is the number, because they spoke about it in the court trial as well. I think like for me, I look at that and I go, if you want to try to be a competitor to Steam, that's a cheap price to pay if you have the money to bankroll it. And given, we now know how much money Epic's making because of Fortnite, it is billions. Like, I think it was 9 billion at its peak for a year. It's like insane amount of money. 12 million is nothing. It's literally a rounding error.
And like, to me, I was more interested in the fact that, they talk about Borderlands 3. So that was exclusive for 6 months on the Epic Game Store, and at the time, everyone was super pissed off about it because Borderlands 3 was it was a very anticipated game.
Yeah, and people hate certain people who helped make Borderlands 3, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of people that, don't care about that stuff and just want another Borderlands.
Sure.
So, and they spent 146 million to get that exclusive for 6 months. But the kicker here is that they, during that period, that 6-month period, 1.56 million people used the store to play Borderlands 3, and 56% of those people were brand new to the platform. So just essentially, now, sure, not everyone's going to go and then buy other stuff, but then you've basically just got a massive influx of people to add to your Fortnite people that are more likely probably than a lot of Fortnite people to actually purchase full retail games.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, but that is a lot of money, but I can't remember exactly what it was, but they disclosed all the actual, the financials around that, and it seemed like it did make sense for them and work out, but that's a lot of money.
Well, is effectively a $80 million bet, because one of the components of the contract, so there's marketing and all that kind of stuff, so you could argue it's a $115 million bet, but some of it's marketing, so the way that you treat that's totally different from a legal perspective and a financial perspective. But they gave Gearbox, right, Borderlands 3?
Yeah.
They gave Gearbox $80 million guarantee. Like, if it sells nothing, we will give you $80 million. Just bang, straight from the start. And you could totally understand Gearbox going, yeah, we're going to do this exclusive deal. Like, cash flow is king in this business. And just going, okay, you've got the money. Like, who knows if it's going to sell well or not. And they recouped, like, the $80 million within weeks. Epic Games, because essentially it's like, here's $80 million, we'll take the money, and then once it goes over a level, you start getting money from it as well. It was a good deal, man. Like, they did really well. I was like surprised at how popular Borderlands 3 is.
Borderlands 2 was massive, man. Like,
No, but they had a chart. Like, so they did a blind survey of Epic Game Store users and said, what games are you interested in? So randomized to certain users. And Borderlands 3 was more popular than like Last of Us Part 2. Like, more people were looking forward to that, or like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I was like, wow, that's so crazy. It was like the number one game that people were looking forward to, according to Epic Game Store users.
But I mean, that's slightly biased, isn't it? Because
of course
they're
it
more
is.
likely to be
of course it is.
PC users as opposed to console users.
No, of course. No, but of course. But the point for Epic is they want people on the Epic Game Store. People who are on the Epic Game Store are probably a good starting point to figure out how do you get more of these people. And that just shocked me. I would have never guessed in a million years Borderlands 3 at the time was the most anticipated game for people. So
I also like how it kind of came out, you know, some of their strategies around trying to get some of the first party titles from Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft on the Epic Game Store. And I forget what it was, but their comment about Nintendo was really funny. It's like, this is pretty much a non-starter.
yeah, well, you know, we'll cover Nintendo a bit later, but if you look at a lot of the disclosures, especially the ones that are leaked, when they talk about Nintendo, they basically go, you know, it's a moonshot. We'll have a crack, but it's never going to work. It's amazing. Like, just to emphasize, you know, gaming for whatever reason is like cloaked in this weird secrecy, in a sense that like much more than any other industry that I've seen. It's very strange. I don't really totally understand why, but it is. And you know, like Nintendo is almost one of the most secret in that industry. So it's kind of crazy to see everyone talk about them, you know, and just their views on them and their games and how they do things. In terms of Sony, I think Sony's probably come out the worst out of all of this.
I'd say so
And
as well.
there's now like a suit that's going in place against Sony, actually. Like, it's only at the early stages, still years away, but about some of their practices. So they've been screwed by, especially the leaks, where, well, it's not really, you can't call them leaks. It's just mishandling of the information, where like, kind of like they're breaching the law. Like, I don't really know how you can't argue that in American law. It's definitely breaching Australian law. You can't force companies to pay you, like, for, you know, then opening it up to other companies, like creating a third line forcing situation. You can't do that in Australia, like what Sony's done, where they're saying everyone's doing. So sorry, the context is Crossplay, Epic, like, actually threatened to sue Sony for Crossplay. And by the way, amongst all of this, isn't this interesting in business that Sony has invested in Epic Games, right? $250 million a year ago, and then recently invested another $200 million. And meanwhile, Tim Sweeney is threatening Sony that we're going to sue you.
But was that prior to them making those investments?
It's around the same time. Like, I think it was a year before or something like that. But it's crazy to think a guy says, I'm going to sue you, and then afterwards they buy into him. It's just nuts. But yeah, they basically had a weird deal with Sony. So it is tricky, crossplay, especially where you can use the same items on your account across all the different platforms that you use. Because you could get a scenario where someone buys it all on their iPhone because they feel comfortable with buying it on their iPhone, let's just say, but they play all the time on the PlayStation. And is that really fair for PlayStation? Like, you know, whether it's fair or not, they probably feel like, hey, we're getting ripped off here. They're using the game on our service. But generally, like, you know, that it is what it is. But Sony actually stipulated certain ratios, and if it goes outside of those ratios, they need compensation. And like I said, you cannot do this kind of stuff in Australia. Like, starts to get into the territory of like third line forcing and things like that.
It really just establishes or reestablishes, you know, what we all thought, which was basically, you know, that Sony was so reluctant for this crossplay stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But then they're putting this face out like, oh, the security of the platform. And then essentially they're just like, yeah, like this just confirms what everybody knew was true anyway. But the fact that they're the only platform that is requiring this compensation outside of, you know, Nintendo and Xbox and obviously any of the PC stuff. So
Yeah, they've really come out as the bad guy for this. Microsoft, quite a lot of funny stuff going on with Microsoft. Did you want to touch on it, Swinny?
Yeah, so as of July last year, Phil Spencer actually told Tim Sweeney via emails that he still hadn't given up hope of bringing xCloud to rival consoles. So that's pretty recent when you think about it. It's less than 12 months ago. Also, apparently came out the Game Pass is yet to become profitable, which I think we would have all assumed anyway at this point.
Yeah, I did kind of assume that.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good deal.
A really funny thing is that they have this. There was some slides about like Microsoft's internal release schedule, and it's this meme across the internet at the moment that about Balan Wonderworld that everyone keeps calling it Balan Wonderland, and even Microsoft in the slide called it Balan Wonderland. So it was just a really really funny thing. That's like, why would you not call the game that? It rhymes. Come on, people.
It's funny. It's almost like become a Berenstein Bear thing,
Exactly.
but in real time. In real time, like I've heard people on podcasts call it Wonderland, and then halfway through they're like, "Wait, did you say Wonderland? Don't you mean Wonderworld?" And I was like,
there's also Microsoft had an internal analysis, or like I guess internal review on The Last of Us Part 2, which, you know, you generally don't hear first parties talk about the other rival first party games. So their internal review was The Last of Us Part 2 is the exceedingly rare video game where it accomplishes with what it accomplishes in moving forward the art of narrative storytelling video games as a medium ultimately outweighs whether or not everyone likes it or even has fun playing it, which I think a lot of people would probably agree with. Last Part 2.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I was saying that's a really good analysis. Because the other one that I don't think we have in our notes, but Microsoft, their predictions around what was coming out in 2020. So like at least in say Q4 calendar year 2020, they thought Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, and Bayonetta 3 were all going to be coming out in that period of time. Now, I don't think I've told you guys. I actually was like looking at applying for a job at EA, right? Recently, like in their Sydney office, which like part of me was like, if I get this job, I can't wait to troll the hell out of Mike. That would be like the best thing ever.
I can't think of.
I don't know if we can be friends any longer.
I can't think of a game company I'd least like to work for.
Same.
So I look at it and I'm like, because, you know, I look at some of this analysis, I'm like, man, I could do a better job than this. This is terrible. Like, what are they thinking? Metroid Prime 4, they had to restart the development. And then, like, Bayonetta 3, we've heard nothing about it. So, yeah, I thought that was funny. Microsoft probably came out the best so far. Phil Spencer, the thing I love about this kind of stuff, and I read so much about the Royal Commission into banking, it's because you actually get an insight of, you know, Phil Spencer emailing Tim Sweeney just directly. Like it's almost like private communication, right? Now, when you work at a public company especially, you can never consider it private. But people just fall into this habit of just like sending an email, and it's very like them. And it's quite funny if you read through Phil Spencer's emails. It's very Phil Spencer, and it's very hard to explain that. But just like his style, he's very smart with the way he says things. He doesn't commit, but he seems very like relaxed and just like a cool guy, very chilled. But he's actually very sneaky with the way he words things. Like, and it doesn't come across as sneaky, but it's like next level sneaky where people don't even realize you're being sneaky. And he does that even with his private emails, so it's quite funny. Nintendo. So, you know, we had the whole, you know, with Yakuza, which is quite common, they reckon, in Japanese contracts, that you cannot, they don't have games on their platform where companies that have sponsorship or affiliation with or are funded by the Yakuza or Yakuza groups. I think in 2010 in Japan, there were some laws put in place to block this kind of stuff as well. But the one that I wanted to really mention around Nintendo. So I actually downloaded the archive from the court around the time when it went up. So I was going through it myself, like just reading through a lot of the documents, right? And I actually got to the one where like it was the epic sort of like pack. I think it was like in 2020, like for the executive team. And I was flipping through and it had like The Rock and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And then I flipped to a slide and it had like Samus as one of the skins for Fortnite. And I was like, holy shit, like this is so cool. Now, probably don't get too excited. It does seem very much like this is this is kind of like what we want to do and who we're talking to. And maybe, in companies and business, you guys know this. It's like you can have conversations with people about, hey, what do you think of this? Like, what does this look like? But nothing might come from it, right? And it definitely seems to be the case here. Like the art isn't even their commissioned art. It was just fan art from like DeviantArt or something. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
A really interesting thing here to me is so in the last week they announced that Rambo is joining Call of Duty Warzone, right? And as part of this pack for Fortnite, they had potentially John McClane from Die Hard. Well, just today, Call of Duty Warzone started teasing John McClane from Die Hard.
Yeah.
So the fact is that Fortnite had got these potential plans to try to get John McClane in the game, and now it's Activision's like, okay, Warzone. It's just weird.
Do you reckon there's even a possibility that they've actually gone, oh, these are gettable, so why don't we ask the question? I mean, that's possible. That happens in business.
Yeah, it's just a teaser image showing like Nakatomi vent thing or something on their Twitter, but it's just weird. Like, I mean, John McClane, I wouldn't say he's the most obvious first choice for a battle royale character. So yeah, Rambo makes sense, but yeah.
I think but a lot of these stuff, it feels like it's been picked by people who are like our age, who are also the people who run these companies, right? Where it doesn't, to me, make sense for the user base. Shouldn't it be like way younger people like Jake Paul or something? Jake Paul skin in Fortnite, right? God. But dude, don't you think it'd be way more popular than John McClane?
Probably.
Yeah, but it'll also probably... I reckon. Anyway, I reckon it's probably not expensive to get John McClane in Warzone.
Sure. I just don't know how it's going to really do anything. And Rocket League actually came up, which I was like super pumped about. So they're actually making a next gen version. So it sounds like they're making a Unreal Engine maybe 5. Fingers crossed, because they are a part of Unreal now and Epic, and they're running it on Unreal Engine 3, I think. Or Rocket League. So they're still, I'm almost certain that they're running on Unreal Engine 3. I don't know if you can check that, Swinny.
I'll have a look.
So yeah, I'm super pumped that they're doing that. And the interesting thing is they're actually making the next gen version of Rocket League for mobile from the start. So they have a full version of Rocket League on mobile and then branch it out onto every other platform and do crossplay, progression, all that kind of stuff on all the platforms. And that was actually meant to be in alpha last year. And then, we've mentioned the Rocket League 2D game, Sideswipe, was actually meant to be fully released last year. So it's quite amazing how COVID is like really, and probably other things as well, but there's massive delays in this space.
So I'll just confirm, it seems like you're right. I think it's running off Unreal Engine 3.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely is still on that one because they haven't upgraded it. So, which is quite interesting. I mean, Mass Effect's running on Unreal Engine 3, just to give you the context. Like back in the day, the original version and the latest version. So,
well, it's probably still more than enough for the kind of game that it is.
Oh, like Unreal Engine's amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's super popular in Japan. It's one of the best. Like if I was trying to make a, triple or a double A game, I'd use Unreal Engine for sure.
And it's important to remember, like, Rocket League at this point is nearly a 6-year-old game as well. So,
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 2015, right?
Yeah, July 2015.
Yeah, love Rocket League. So good. But when you see it in the numbers with Epic Games and compared to Fortnite, it's literally a rounding error, Rocket League. It's interesting, though, because it has a lot of players. Like, it's not a slouch in terms of monthly active users. They just can't monetize the users as well as Fortnite with the battle royales and all that. The season passes and all that kind of stuff and battle passes. And then the last one is just like some weird details like Walmart. So Walmart, from a retail perspective with video games, they own 25% of all physical, actually 25% of like sales of games in the States. But because, physical versus digital, from a digital perspective, they own 2% of sales. Now, I didn't even
I'm
know.
surprised they even had 2%.
I agree. I guess it's like codes and stuff. So, you know, smartly, I guess they look at it and go, well, hang on, guys, we're going to lose a bunch of revenue here. What can we do differently? Walmart's a very smart company, and, you know, they've got their own cloud platform that they're building, or whether they've dropped it, Project Storm, which is a very unoriginal title for a project name. And it will support the Epic Game Store. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And then the last one that I thought was really funny was back in 2015, Tim Cook didn't even know who Tim Sweeney was. And Tim Sweeney was like on the stage with Apple, like announcing stuff. And he literally goes, who is this guy? Is this the guy in rehearsals?
Well, also Epic and Apple's relationship kind of, you know, it goes back to, you know, Infinity Blade on Apple as well. You know, like they were presenting on the stage with that stuff as well. So it's not like it's even early in 2015. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like Infinity Blade genuinely, even for me, made me go, wow, like mobile games can look pretty insanely good. Like, and that was the first game that was really like that. And yeah, the context here was that Tim Sweeney sent an email directly to Tim Cook and a bunch of other top execs saying, you know, why don't you open up the platform? Why don't you let other people put stuff on there and stuff like that? And yeah, that's the one line answer from Tim Cook to the other execs. He's like, who, you know, is this the guy from rehearsals? Like, who is this guy? Just like so awesome, so dismissive. He certainly knows who he is now. So, and also, by the way, Tim Cook is not going to appear at the trial. I'd be really surprised. You know, they're getting the guys. It's like two levels below him. Like is the guy who's appearing, but Tim Sweeney it was like opened on the trial, so it's quite interesting. So yeah, we'll keep you posted on this case. It's yeah, like I said, get it going for a couple more weeks, and we'll probably round it off at the end. And you know, who knows? There might be more leaks, but probably not. I think they've gotten on top of their handling of the documentation. All right, let's get into our next news story.